may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, guys, massive disclaimer here. One, these are not dynasty rankings. Now, y'all know I love dynasty fantasy football. We were, if not the first, probably the second or third dynasty fantasy football podcast on YouTube. And I still make dynasty content every single day. That's going to be on a different channel, though. That's the Dynasty Flock. This channel, we are going to be strictly talking about season-to-season projections with these players in fantasy football. So if you're playing in an office league, if you're just playing regular fantasy football and you have no idea what I'm talking about, ignore me. These rankings are for you. These are going to be for 2021 with these wide receivers. But also, another disclaimer. I am not recording these close to the season. We have not had free agency yet. We have not had the NFL draft yet. We are going to have so many different things changing. Not only have we had coaches around the league change, not only have we had a ton of quarterback rumors so far, but we are still going to have to evaluate offensive lines going into 2021 after free agency, after the NFL draft, and we are also going to have wide receiver twos changing around on teams, and that's going to make a difference. I mean, some of these guys are going to see a drop-off in their target shares if they get another solid guy like maybe a Will Fuller coming into their situation, which is going to cause them to not necessarily project to be as nice in 2021 as they were this past year. But that's it for the disclaimer. If you have not already, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, even though I'm sure everybody watching this is already subscribed, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, let's dive right in, and let's start it off with our first wide receiver, who is going to be Tyreek Hill. And I know some people are saying, Mason, how are you going to have Tyreek here ahead of Davante Adams? But simply, it's because Tyreek Hill is a wide receiver that it doesn't matter what is going on in Kansas City. If they bring in another wide receiver option, Tyreek Hill is still going to be dominant. Tyreek Hill is still going to be elite. And that's because Tyreek Hill doesn't live off of volume. And now, y'all know I am kind of being a hypocrite here because all I talk about in fantasy football on a week-to-week standpoint is targets, carries, targets out of the backfield. Everything's about volume. And I say to kind of fade the efficiency because efficiency is volatile season to season. It's kind of hard to chase those outliers. Well, in the case of Tyreek Hill, it's not going to be volatile. In the case of Tyreek Hill, he is such an outlier that we can actually project him to be close to the league leader in yards per target every single season. This is because A, Tyreek Hill is an elite talent on his own right, B, because Tyreek Hill is playing with the best quarterback in the NFL, and C, because Tyreek Hill has a fantastic head coach in Andy Reid. So it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if Sammy Watkins is out of Kansas City. It doesn't matter if McCole Hardman turns into something that we've been looking for since he entered the NFL. Tyreek Hill is going to be dominant. Tyreek Hill is an extremely safe option. So I think we are going to have him at number one, despite him being the number 2 wide receiver last year in points per game with 22. I think here there's just no wide receiver as safe as Tyreek Hill. Also, we don't even have to get into the age because we know that he is just now entering his prime. Maybe you can say that because he's more of a speedy type wide receiver rather than a possession type, that he's been in his prime for 1 to 2 seasons now, but he's definitely not on the decline. So you don't even have to bring up age in the conversation with Tyreek Hill. All right, so now coming in here at number 2, I know this is going to surprise some people. I know some people are going to hate this ranking, but we are going to have Stefon Diggs. Okay, so Stefon Diggs, I'll admit, I have not been talking about him on the Dynasty channel as much as I should have. And to be completely honest, it's because I'm a little embarrassed here. Stefon Diggs was a wide receiver that I was actually avoiding in Dynasty and in redraft going into the 2020 season. I mean, I went through and really bought into the fact that wide receivers changing teams historically have really not lived up to expectations that following season. I mean, the most recent example of this would be Odell Beckham Jr. And now I know it's kind of funny to look back at this now because our perception of Odell has completely changed. But I want to remind everyone of the hype Odell had whenever he was traded to Cleveland to be paired up with Baker Mayfield. This was right after Baker Mayfield's elite rookie year, where a lot of people thought Baker was going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL automatically. A lot of people viewed Odell Beckham Jr. as a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Not going to lie, y'all know I'm an Odell homer, so I was right there with everyone else buying in 100%, and I ignored the historical trend of wide receivers changing teams disappointing, and it bit me in the ass, and I went, you know what? I'm not doing that again. I am not going to be falling for that again. We are going to overlook the fact that Stefon Diggs is an elite level wide receiver, and we are just going to hyper focus in on that one trend, and it was a massive mistake. What we should have done is we should have gone, you know what? The Buffalo Bills paid a first-round pick for Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs grades out to be, if not the best deep ball wide receiver in the entire NFL, right up there with the best. We know that Josh Allen also can move around in the pocket to the extent where he's going to give Stefon Diggs a ton of time to get downfield, and he has the arm strength to be able to get the ball to Stefon Diggs. So there were so many things that pointed to the fact that Stefon Diggs was going to have that blow-up performance in Buffalo this past year. And embarrassingly, I overlooked all of them for one factor that, yes, mattered, but not nearly as much as I made it out to be. We should have known that Stefon Diggs is elite. We should have known that Josh Allen was going to complement his skill set very well. And now, coming into this next season, John Brown wouldn't be surprised if he did not find himself in Buffalo. And Josh Allen entering his prime. Currently, Stefon Diggs already in his prime. And similar to Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs doesn't need a 30% target share to be extremely effective. Stefon Diggs, because he does have that deep threat, can be efficient and can provide us elite fantasy production, even if the volume isn't insane. All right, so now our next wide receiver, no need to brag. I know a lot of people are going to be mad that he's down here at number 3, but we had him at number 1 ahead of Michael Thomas last season. And this is Davante Adams. Okay, so Davante Adams kind of blew everybody else away at the wide receiver position last season, where he averaged 25 points per game. And I was all over Davante Adams. And the reason that we were on Davante Adams is because instead of going out there and in NFL free agency or in the NFL draft and taking another wide receiver 2 to help Aaron Rodgers in this offense out, the Green Bay Packers decided to do the exact opposite. They decided to go for some luxury positions that really weren't going to make an impact right away with A.J. Dillon and Jordan Love. And we were looking at this situation going, oh my God, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a deep threat wide receiver, not going to see a lot of volume. All he's going to be doing is clearing out space underneath for the other weapons in the offense to operate. We know that this team supposedly did not have a tight end of consequence. Now, I will admit, I kind of bought into Jace Sternberger just a little bit, and I had him at the very end of some drafts. Now, obviously, that didn't work out, and obviously, Robert Tonyan came in and helped people make it to their fantasy championships. But still, the fact that we aggressively targeted Davante Adams was because we penciled them in for a 30% team target share. And I went, you know what? I know everybody wants to talk about Michael Thomas and his own target share, but Davante Adams is going to be right up there. Davante Adams is going to have a better NFL quarterback, and Davante Adams is going to have the usage in the red zone. And I will say, if the same thing happens this offseason that the Green Bay Packers did last year, where they didn't bring in a significant wide receiver 2, I'm going to be moving Davante Adams up to number 1. But as it stands, I think the Packers are extremely likely to go out there and aggressively target a wide receiver like Will Fuller, aggressively target someone like Juju, Allen Robinson, or even someone in the NFL draft, because this team would be significantly better if they had someone across from Davante Adams that was not Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So I will say, I think the target share is going to slightly come down from Davante Adams. And yes, he does have an incredible fantasy points per target, but that's not anything based on his deep threat potential. That's not anything based on his deep routes. It's more so based on the fact that Davante Adams has been one of the best wide receivers in the red zone throughout his entire NFL career. So if another number 2 is going to come in, maybe we see the target share from Davante Adams come down from over 30% to 26%. I think that's just enough to knock him down from where we had him last year at number 1 down to number 3. All right, so now let's get to our next wide receiver. Very similar to Stefon Diggs. I completely whiffed here, not going to lie. DeAndre Hopkins. Last season, embarrassing. what I was saying. He was going in the second round, and this was a round lower than where he's pretty much been going for the past 5 years, as DeAndre Hopkins is someone that has seen 160 targets like every single year over the past 5. And I was sitting here going, yeah, Hopkins, one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. I mean, he is an elite talent. But he's transitioning from Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien, the Houston Texans coaching staff, wanting to force feed their number one target 30% of those teams' targets. And I went, he's going to Arizona. He's going to a new quarterback in a shortened offseason. One, we already talked about the historical trend of wide receivers changing teams, not living up to expectations. So that scared me. But also with DeAndre Hopkins, what scared me was I went, okay, Cliff Kingsbury, we know that he's a product of Mike Leach. We know that with the spread system, the last thing you want to do is force feed targets to your number one wide receiver. I thought we were going to have Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins embarrassingly closer than where they actually were. DeAndre Hopkins last season was the number 5 wide receiver in points per game with 18. And now in Arizona, there's nothing that we should expect that's going to change this. He's going to have another offseason to get comfortable with the coaching staff, to get comfortable with Kyler Murray. Now DeAndre Hopkins is still in his prime. I know that he's a little bit older if we're talking about dynasty fantasy football, but still for his 2021 season projection, I think that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be an extremely safe bet at our number 4 wide receiver spot. Okay, so now let's go to our next guy. My favorite player from last year. Honestly, I should probably order a jersey for the wall. Justin Jefferson. Now, y'all know I love Justin Jefferson. We hit on him so hard in the 2020 season, and we are going to have him in the top 5. This is a 21-year-old wide receiver that was able to be top 10 in points per game last year, playing alongside Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen was getting all of the usage in the red zone. We know that the majority of fantasy production comes in that area of the football field. So with Justin Jefferson, I know we have to be a little bit concerned on saying if Kirk Cousins leaves Minnesota. I know Kirk Cousins isn't necessarily a fantastic NFL quarterback or anything, but he does have a very nice career YPA. Is that going to hurt Justin Jefferson? It's going to take him a little bit longer to build that chemistry with the new quarterback. But personally, I don't care. I mean, he was dominant at LSU. He was an elite wide receiver in college. And after the best rookie wide receiver season of all time, if you're looking at pure efficiency, I think Justin Jefferson is just in a spot that he's going to be able to take a massive step up. He's extremely young. He was an elite prospect. And he just balled out that rookie season. So my man Jefferson, maybe this is just full on hype. Maybe I'm losing my mind here. Please let me know in the comment section. Send me back down to earth if I am just completely off. But Justin Jefferson, I think we're going to have him at 5. And there's really nothing you can say in the comments to change my mind. All right, so now our next wide receiver is probably the safer bet to have at number 5, just not as exciting. We are going to have A.J. Brown. Now, I will say for Tennessee, something that I have not heard most people bring up is the fact that the offensive coordinator is gone. We know that he was a big part in developing a very successful play-action scheme. And I know, obviously, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown all have a massive part of this. And I will say there is a path for A.J. Brown to go up as high as wide receiver 3 on this list. And I know that sounds crazy, but what we need to be looking at in Tennessee this offseason is what is going to happen with Corey Davis. Now, I know Corey Davis is not a name most people like to bring up because Corey Davis is seen as a draft bust for most people. I believe he was the number 5 pick by the Tennessee Titans in 2017. And up until 2020, Corey Davis really was silent. I mean, he was very, very, very much disappointing for this Titans team that made that significant investment. So instead of picking up his team option last offseason, they decided to play it out. They decided to see what he was going to look like in 2020. And if you look at the splits with A.J. Brown from when Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith were on the field versus without, I mean, A.J. Brown saw a significant volume bump up with no Corey Davis or with no Jonnu Smith. So if either one or maybe both of those players are out of this offense next year, I think the targets are going to be safer to project with A.J. Brown, and I think we would have to raise him in our rankings, definitely ahead of Jefferson, possibly ahead of Hopkins. But right now, I think it's going to be a safe spot to have him at number 6, assuming that Corey Davis is going to be back on the team. And I think we have to be a little bit concerned with the change in offensive coordinator. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.